Greetings here, it's Dave Franklin, and I'm about to walk you through my initial installation of Windows 11 as a virtual machine on a Microsoft Server 2016 HyperV host. But before we get started, I just wanted to talk about some of these things concerning Windows 11. So it is going to be a free upgrade from Windows 10. So if you have Windows 10, you won't have to pay an additional licensing fee beyond what license you have for Windows 10 to begin with. It does require a dual-core 64-bit CPU, no 32-bit anymore. It will be updated annually, so we're not supposed to get the normal, at least for Windows 10, semi-annual channel updates. It's still going to be a feature update, but we won't see it now, supposedly, as a twice a year or semi-annual. As it says, a new start menu with Taskbar, and now bringing back Widgets, which used to have in Vista and Windows 7. Now, this one requirement that it has can cause a problem for many people, and that's the Trusted Platform module, at least a 2.0 version, on the motherboard of the PC that you're installing it to. Not all of them have this. Most new ones do. Most new PCs with their new motherboards will have this feature. But again, not all of them will, and some will need it turned on in the actual system BIOS or UEFI. Now, this information I got from Michael Niehaus, and let me just talk about him for a second. And here is Michael Niehaus and his blog, which is called Oof Hours. Anyways, Michael Niehaus is a person I've known for many years as a Windows for IT and devices MVP. He was our MVP lead for many, many years. And as a Microsoft employee, he has been predominant in Windows 10, deploying Windows 10, Windows as a service, and all the functionality that goes with that. In October of 2020, he left Microsoft to pursue other things, other adventures, and other duties. I was really sad to hear that he left Microsoft, but it happens. People who have a career longer than 10 or 15 years with them, that's kind of rare nowadays. And he had been with them for at least that long. So he's still, as far as I'm concerned, my MVP lead. And again, I used his Windows 11 announcement summary blog to pull all this information that I've talked about. So let's go ahead and move on to installing Windows 11. So I'll start out by saying here I have a Dell rack-mounted server, a Dell 610. It's getting kind of old, but it has a lot of RAM on it. I have about 72 gigabytes of RAM, and therefore I can run a lot of virtual machines. And here is the HyperV manager. And as you can see, I got a lot of stuff going on here in HyperV. Most of all of my systems are turned off. I only got one running right now, and that's the Windows Server 2022 preview. But having said that, let's take a look now at the disk space we have available, because that really is going to be my primary concern for the installation of any virtual machine. So in other words, the default location of Hyper-V is going to be the C drive. I don't want to use that. And I looked at the drives that I have. My backup drive listed here, drive F, is in fact a USB drive, and I don't want to put a virtual machine on a USB drive because of the slowness connecting and passing data through it. So internally I have several disk drives, and in this case I have a drive with about 1.14 terabytes on it. And I also have within it my ISO file, and in my ISO folder, I should say not file, I have the new bits for Windows 11, Now again, this is a pre-release. I'm going to use that to install the virtual machine, and we can go ahead and do that. Let me go back to HyperV Manager. So in HyperV Manager, I will click New and then Virtual Machine. And now I'm going to make this virtual machine. I'm going to call it Windows 11 and just PV for preview. And I want to store it in a different location. So I'm going to store it, as I said before, on the D drive. I have a folder called Windows 2021. And it's just stuff I'm doing this year. So I'll put it in there. And click Next. And we'll make it a Generation 1 at this time. Now, the startup memory isn't enough. It requires, like Windows 10, and since it's 64-bit, it's always going to be this, at least 2 gigs. But in this case, I'm going to give it 8 gigs of RAM. I'm going to connect it to my external network. And there's the name of it, and there's the place where it's going to. And now I'm going to put in the ISO file. So we had that here in the same place, and there it is, the client consumer. We'll say open of that, click Next, and then Finish. And now if we look at the specifications of this system before we start it, I'll go to Settings, and we will see the hard drive, but we'll also see the DVD, as it's called in the IDE controller, the DVD drive that has the ISO for the new Windows 11 preview. So I want that, and I'm going to start it. And what should happen at this point is the system will boot to that ISO, or at least the virtual machine connection will. So there it is. Let me pull this up a little bit. Okay, there's a new Windows logo, a little different than Windows 10, but not that much. And the Windows setup window, so I am using English and the time and currency format in English United States and the US keyboard, and I will now install. Or, as the screen says, install now. Okay, of course I don't have a product key. There is no product key yet. So I'm just going to say I don't have a product key. And now the different versions that we can install. So, my goodness, look at this. We have a home version and a home N. We have an N version. I think that's based on the European Union requirements that are out there. So we have home, home N, home single language, education, education N, pro and pro N. We have a pro education and pro education N, and a pro for workstations and a pro N for workstations. So I do not see here, interestingly enough, there is no Enterprise Edition, and that makes sense because I didn't get this through an enterprise agreement with Microsoft or through Microsoft 365. So let's go ahead. I'm going to try to top end it, and I'm going to make the assumption that from the top of this list to the bottom, we're going in ever increasing feature sets, although I don't know that. But I'm going to select the Windows 11 Pro for workstations and click Next. I'll obviously have to accept the license agreement. And I can't do an upgrade because I don't have another operating system sitting on this virtual machine I just made, so we'll go to Custom. And there's the drive, 127 gigabytes of my virtual machine disk that we made earlier when we made the virtual machine, and I'm just going to say Next. And then we should get the installation screen, the Windows setup screen that we've always got, that copies the files over and then gets the files ready for installation. And that takes about, what, less than 15 minutes, but let's say no more than 15 minutes. And then, of course, we have the process to install various features and then go to the update site and look for any updates. Since this was just released a couple of days ago, that is the ISO that I'm using, I don't think there will be any, but there may. But we'll go ahead and let it all run through. And this will take about, like I said, about 10 minutes, let's say. So through the power of the speeding up the video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the part out of here where it builds those getting files ready for installation, and the next time you see it, it will be just about completed. Okay, it was fairly fast to get all the files ready for installation. Normally that takes, like I said, anywhere from 10 minutes or so, but here it looks like it finished it up in about 4.5 minutes. So that's pretty fast compared to what I've seen in the past. Now once again, the time that it takes is a very variable factor, because a lot will depend on the underlying hardware that you have, how fast your CPU is. Now here it's going to restart. I can force that to restart now just to make it quicker. But anyways, it depends on your underlying hardware that you have, such as the CPU speed, the number of processors, how much RAM you have. With a virtual machine, that's then going to depend on how much of this feature set you've given over to the virtual machine. For example, on a server like this, I can actually assign a number of processor cores exclusively to this virtual machine, just like I did. It gave exclusively 8 gigs of RAM to the virtual machine when I made it. So what it's doing now is actually going through and finding all the correct device drivers for this particular operating system. Because it is a virtual machine in HyperV Manager, there are going to be what you call virtualized / synthetic type drives that don't really exist, but Microsoft is actually mimicking driver behavior for a particular feature set in their virtual machines. And now we see it starting the services. Once the services start, we should see the getting ready, or getting devices ready. There it is. Okay, that was pretty quick to get the devices ready. And now it's just getting ready, and I can't really tell you at this point what that means, except that it's getting ready. But so far, except for perhaps this Windows icon, everything appears exactly the same if I was installing Windows 10 at this point. Now, one thing that we have with Windows 11 and Windows 10 in general is the desire, if you will. I don't want to say desire, but the system will ask you for a Microsoft account name and password rather than an end user account or a local administrator's account. And in this case, I do have a dummy account that I'm going to assign, that I made just to teach classes with, called contoso.instructor@hotmail.com. Now, because at this point, watching this is like watching paint dry, which is boring as all get out, I will go ahead and pause the recording, and I will start it up again when there's new activity. I hope I don't miss anything that you'd want to see. When a screen pops up and any interactive request is made of me, I will definitely have the recorder going. But if it's possible that it flashes, let's say, a couple of command prompt boxes on the screen, and I don't capture that because I paused the recording, oh well, you've missed that, and you'll have to try this for yourself. But I'll endeavor to keep the recording going when there's the typical, for example, we'll have the out-of-box experience, or UBI as it's called, where I'm asked all those questions. That will definitely get recorded. But for now, we're going to pause. Okay, well now we're no longer getting ready, and the Windows logo has disappeared. So let's see what's next. It's always uncomfortable to get a black screen with nothing else on it. But I'm sure it's still installing. There we go. It's restarting. And there's a Windows logo for a second, and now I see my circle spinning around without a Windows circle, without saying it's getting ready. So, okay, now I get the Windows icon. But at this point, I'll go ahead and pause the recording so it doesn't bore you to death. Okay, now here's something new. I got a white screen with the Windows logo in it. Looks very professional. Oh my goodness, look at this. We might be seeing Windows 11 in just a second. Notice down the bottom there's a little dude like with his arms outspread, a little caricature. I don't know what that is, but it looks pretty happy. Arms outspread. Okay, here we go. So this first question is then going to be about the keyboard. Or the country, excuse me, not keyboard, just the country to set everything correctly. I'll say yes. Okay, and yes, that's the error that we got. Something went wrong. You can try again or skip for now, and it says the UBI out-of-box experience keyboard. So that's fine. We're going to skip that, as it suggested we do. And once again, I was going to say I was going to pause, but now we see it's doing something else, checking for updates. Okay. And I don't see a spinning wheel. Instead, I see dots on the top. And what is the difference? I really don't think there is one. Anyways, let's say I'm going to set this up. And I said before, I had a Microsoft account I could use. And I could also set this up for work or school where I might have the Azure Active Directory, and I want to join this computer to the Azure Active Directory. Also, aside from join, I could enroll it in Microsoft Intune. Many of those things could be done, but I'm not going to do that yet. I will do that in a future update of this. I'm going to set it up for personal use, which requires a Microsoft account. So that should be the next thing it asks me now that I've said next. Okay, so let me see. That should be contoso.instructor, I believe, at hotmail.com. And I'll put in the password that I had for that. And there we go. So now it's going to add this Microsoft account as the owner, if you will, of the system. It might ask me to create a PIN number. Well, that's actually redundant, right? Personal identification number already has number in it. So it's going to ask me, it may ask me to create a PIN. Okay, there we go. Create a PIN. Okay, it doesn't say how many letters I can use. So in the past, it's always been 4. Instead, excuse me, it doesn't say how many characters I can use. In the past, it's been 4, and you've had 4 separate boxes to put it in, but here it seems a little more freestyle. So I'm going to use, rather than 4, I'm going to use 6, which I think is a better security method to use. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and say okay to that. And it should be accepted. So now when I go to, if I shut this system off or log out, I should actually be able to put that same PIN in again to authenticate in the future. So to a certain extent, some of the out-of-box experience requests have already been made. There we go. Okay. Choose privacy settings for your device. So because this is a not real working account, I'm going to accept the defaults here. You might decide otherwise, and that's fine. The location-based experience, since this is on a PC device rather than a portable or handheld device, location doesn't matter as much. And the diagnostic data to me is important because that includes information that Microsoft will use to fix problems and find out about stuff, especially errors. Since this is a preview, I want them to have that. I am a Windows insider, as I said before, so that's an important part of this. Inking and typing, diagnostic, tailored experience based on diagnostic. Advertising ID. Okay, well, some of these I might say no to on a actual computer that I'm going to use with my own account, but in this case, we're just going to accept it. As I said, it's a dummy account in the sense that it's not really used, but I use it when I'm doing various training things just to show people, or demonstrations or videos to show people how things work. In case you're interested, Microsoft has a couple of learning domains that they actually have registered with the internet. One of those is contoso.com and the other is adatum.com. There's several more beyond that. So in my job as a Microsoft certified trainer, I'm always using those. Okay, now this is interesting. Customizing our experience. And I see a number of boxes here in which I can check. And because I don't want to leave anything out, I think I'm going to check all of them. So gaming, creativity, family. That's probably setting up a family profile and safe settings. Schoolwork, sure. Entertainment, you bet. And business, yep, I want all that stuff. So I'm going to accept everything. Automatically store my files in OneDrive or only store files on this device. I'm a big proponent of OneDrive. Having data in the cloud, or at least not on this computer, means that if I save it in the cloud or not on this computer, it's available even if I lose this computer. So I will keep that and say next. Since every Microsoft account has, I'm not sure how much it has, but it has some space in OneDrive. I almost want to say 1 gigabyte, but that does change over time. Okay, here we go. Try Premium Office apps for free. Okay, but I need a credit card to start the 1-month trial, so I'm not going to accept that. Especially on a preview system, and especially since I already have a Microsoft 365 subscription, just not assigned to the account that I chose to log in with. Okay, just a moment, yes. Now this is the normal screen I see on Windows 10 when it's making the copying over the profile and everything in the users folder for a new user. And it's got all those wonderful informational messages like this might take a few minutes. Don't turn off your PC. Okay, I won't. And please, how long is a few minutes? Well, as I said before, that number seems to vary. Someone once said, Microsoft minutes and moments are not part of our space-time continuum, this universe. Rather, they're in their own universe with their own physics and everything. But it's a joke. What it is again dependent on the hardware and whatever underlying software you have. So for this particular installation that I'm doing, it's not just the hardware of the server that matters, it's how I set up the virtual machine and the amount of resources I gave to this virtual machine. That's a whole nother thing. It's not part and parcel of a Windows 11 or any Windows client install when you're doing a virtual machine. It treats the virtual machine as a real physical metal and plastic computer or computing device, but it's not. So a lot of these dependencies on time and things will take a little bit longer in some cases, shorter in others. Okay, my PC is on and plugged in still, and we're not turning it off still. We're just hoping we get our environment here very shortly. All right, well, that's a very positive message to get, isn't it? Good things coming your way. I think over this past year with all the issues and COVID and stuff, it's really refreshing to see a statement like that sent to us as part of an install or just said in general. Makes me happy. Now, what's really going on, I can't tell you. It's further creating the profile and environment for the user who is being, I should say, the user environment that is being created for the particular user. A Microsoft account, contoso.instructor at hotmail.com. Okay. Well, I appreciate this too, making sure everything is ready to go. Because I certainly wouldn't want to try to use it when everything was not ready to go, right? There might be something I would try to use that's not ready to go. That's not good. So making sure everything is ready to go is important. Okay, well, that's still positive. You know, that's keeping me in the in the game, if you will. Still working on a few things. Almost there. Yep. By golly, we're gonna have it soon. Reminding me that they haven't forgotten me. That things are still being prepared. It's always good to know. Almost is a very positive word when you think about it. All right, almost there. Hey, this is part of HyperV to make the screen larger. I'm not going to do that right now because I want to see this in its native setting as it just came up. So we're going to close that. And now we see this is what I've seen in all the pictures and all the literature and websites coming out. This is our start menu right here. Oh my goodness. So it's the same as clicking this. The little start in the taskbar. And notice how the taskbar, the start isn't on the far left. It's now right front and center. Let's see, we have our search. So if I said control, would I get the control panel? And sure enough, yes, I can go to the control panel, which really doesn't look that much different I won't stay here though. I want to explore all these things in the taskbar, all these icons. So here's the task view, and here is widgets. Oh, interesting. So I'm going to click that, see what happens. Okay. And I guess now it's building widgets, or going to populate them with some data. Okay, I've clicked and right-clicked in this widget, and or this tile, if you will. Nothing's really happening, so I can't tell you whether this is eventually going to load data or it's just going to continue on. Up, there we go. Very good. Up. Well, it did come up for a second. There we go. So my location, it shows the temperature. We get some financial information, something from the latest sports, and some top stories. So those are our widgets. We can scroll down, I suppose, and see more news stories. I'm always depressed by the news, so I don't want to see that. Let me close it. We have File Explorer and the OneDrive that was created for the Contoso instructor is there. I just need to, it says run when you log in. Okay, but I have my quick access. I'm not sure about the libraries now. I guess these are still the libraries that are assigned. I don't see it as a library. I have this PC, which should show, okay, well, it shows the size of my drive. So look at this, a floppy disk drive. That is an artifact of HyperV, the virtual machine connection that we have, not part of Windows 11. So let's just close that. We have the new Chromium Edge. Okay, and that's like the first time it's launched. It will build the environment for the authenticated user. If it's a Microsoft account or an Azure Active Directory account, I'll just say complete setup. And yeah, I don't want to do any of these. Let me just close that. Okay, so we get Bing. Well, we did get it for a second. That's going to the welcome page. That's fine. I'm going to close this in just a second. Okay, yep, let's go. We're done. Okay. And, well, I'll just click through all these. Okay, we're done. Let me close that. All right. We have the Microsoft Store. Let's see if that's changed any. Let's see if there's any new things available to us. Now, the Microsoft Store that exists out there in the real world does exist, and there's all kinds of stuff in it. Now, whether there's anything new in Windows 11 for a Windows 11 specific system, I doubt very much. So yeah, this looks about the same. Let's see. If I go to download and updates, sometimes I will see everything that's been installed, every app, and there we go. We see all the apps. Back when I checked all those boxes for family settings and business and gaming and stuff, it installed all these depending on what I've checked in those boxes. So you notice the Solitaire collection looks like that's been installed. It's a game. And other features we have. So I'm going to close that. And lastly, there's an Office icon. Let's see what that gives us. And it's probably going to want me to do a free trial of the Office 365. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, go premium. Let's see, do this. get 1 terabyte of cloud storage in OneDrive. My current plan, free Office for the web with 5 gigabytes. So the cloud storage that I have in OneDrive is actually now 5. Let's see, next slide. Okay, very nice. So I guess I could open up some of these things and it would work. Let's try it. Let me just click on Outlook and see what happens. So it will take me to the the OA, the Outlook Web Access. Well, I don't want to create. If I sign in, I suppose I will see all my mail. So I won't do that. I just don't want to have you see stuff that might have been sent to me.
Okay, then.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close this now. Let's see what's in the system tray. So we have Windows Security is running in OneDrive. We have the network. Looks like that's working okay. There is no speakers on a virtual machine, so we're not going to hear anything. Here's the calendar. Okay, not much. I could set up my calendar. And I have 3 notifications, which are OneDrive's now configured. Some apps were registered to start. And another item from OneDrive. Let's see what other things I can do here. I can use the nightlight setting, which I'm not sure does. And we have all settings. So let me go to all settings. That's one way to get there. I thought on this new start menu there was one. So let's see. Yes, settings. So I can also shut down and restart. And I can also sign out, lock the account, or change account settings. Okay, let me go to settings. There's one setting I wanted to check, and that was for the Windows Insider program. Because here is where the hardware factors, if you don't have the correct one, it won't report information back to Microsoft. So I'm told this is an update in security. And if I go down to the Windows Insider program, let's see if I get the message that others have told me about, which is, yep, your PC does not meet the minimum hardware requirements for Windows 11. Your channel options will be limited. You can still join. I do belong, but not as this user account. So that's fine. I'm going to close it at this point and do no more exploration, if you will. Just this video was basically made to install it and let you see it for the first time being installed. So we're done. Yay! And this is Dave Franklin of Dave MCT LLC signing out and thanking you for bearing with all this. Goodbye.